Join us in the Bear Den, a real-life, real-love podcast celebrating the joys and challenges of parenting, family dynamics, and unconditional love.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Bear Den podcast. Today, I have a very, very special guest. This woman has been a key part of my life for the last 18 months. She's a mentor of mine through the We Are the They program. She's helped me uncover some of the most important things in my life and helped me to become a better man. She's a wonderful friend and a beautiful human. It is Miss Melissa von Musser. How are you, my love?
I'm so excited. Just got off the plane and I just was on my way here. I'm just getting so excited.
You literally just got right from the airport, car rental, straight to here. So.
Had a little loop, got a little lost, but it's all good.
Hey, that's all right. Little drive through Starbucks on the way. That's fine.
I wish.
I really appreciate you coming in. I know that you're like me. You're from out of state. So trying to get us both in the same place at the same time is very difficult. It is very magical. Mm-hmm. And you've been on my list from day one. Just because of how impactful you are.
I like to be on somebody's list.
You are on my list, my love.
Fantastic.
From the first moment I met you 18 months ago, you've, like I mentioned in the prequel, you've just had such an impact on my life and my wife's life and so many others' lives that I just couldn't do this podcast without you being on here. So
thank you.
I want to dive into, because there's a lot of people that know you and there's a lot of people that know your story, but I think there's also aspects of your story that people don't know, and it would be really nice to add all the dots together. So tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and what your background and your history is, and how you got here.
Well, let's see. I was born and raised in California to two beautiful people. My parents were beautiful, brilliant, and intelligent. My dad was a savant. My mom was Miss Norway, and she came here for the Miss Universe pageant.
Really?
Yeah, that's how she came here.
She's Miss Norway?
Yeah.
So she's Norwegian?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and she doesn't, everybody thinks she's blue. She should be blue-eyed, blonde hair.
Yeah.
No, she's olive skin. Well, she was. She's passed. But green eyes, olive skin, dark.
Wow.
Very exotic looking.
I have Norwegian family.
That explains it.
Seriously, I do. Yeah, my mom's brother moved to Norway in the 70s and lived there. He's retired there.
Oh my gosh!
So I've got Norwegian cousins, Norwegian family.
That's awesome.
I've spent 6 months living in Norway when I was younger.
Oh, I've wanted to. That's on my bucket list. I have not been there yet.
Oh, you have to.
No, I've got to go.
Do you know whereabouts in Norway she was from?
She was born in Stavanger and raised in Oslo.
Love that bit of both of those places. They're beautiful, beautiful
I can't
places. Wait. Okay, we got to get you to Norway.
Yes, we do. It's on my list.
I have contacts over there.
Well, maybe we'll go together.
Let's do it.
Let's get Andrea.
I've actually always said I want to take Andrea to Norway.
Oh, I would
because
love to go.
So my family, there's a town right on the southern coast of Norway called Kristiansand.
I've heard of it.
And then an hour north of Kristiansand, there's a really teeny tiny little town called Evje. And that's where he had a farm. He had a beautiful, which they don't have anymore. They've sold that, but he had this beautiful farm. But I've still got my cousins in Norway.
Oh my gosh.
aunts in Norway. And I've always wanted to take Andrea and go show her the fjords and go up to the Hardangervidda and go see all the mountains, and I want to go take her and do that. So
like you, I've got family there. I met my cousin, but outside of that, there's family all over there that I've never met. And I'd like to go see that, because my mom, when she moved here for the Miss Universe pageant, she married her sponsor, which was in retrospect, I think bad idea, but she did.
Sponsor as in
back in the day.
The financial sponsor for her.
They would sponsor the women to come from foreign countries. Well, he owned car dealerships, and for whatever reason, she married this man. Not a kind guy, beat her badly, but he was very wealthy, and he owned a plane. And back in the days, in the early 50s, they would go and take an artist, they'd take a photographer, a starlet, a producer, director. They'd get about 25 different famous people on a plane, and they'd travel the world, and they'd write stories and take pictures and send them back. Mm-hmm. The guy that owned the plane was my mom's husband. My mom was the starlet. My dad happened to be, he was a writer and photographer for the Associated Press at the time. And he was on that flight and all these other famous people. Well, somewhere around India, my parents fell in love and ditched it all. Split and vanished into traveling the world together. And
so she left her husband with the plane and all that sort of stuff.
Adios.
And her and the photographer split this way? Wow.
And so they had a very passionate, dysfunctional relationship. They never got married. And they came back from that trip. And my grandmother, my dad's mom, was very upper echelon, Grosse Pointe, Michigan, wife of a doctor, very, very proper. And my dad shows up with this very dark, exotic woman who doesn't speak English and is now pregnant with his child and not married.
Yeah.
So my dad was one of those people that just he flouted, he just flipped the bird to people who lived in the box. And his whole life was very, very exotic, very, and I'll get to share that at the WAD event, but he was the true Renaissance man. And so I got raised by someone who taught me that don't live in the box, do life differently.
Okay.
Now, there's pros and cons to that. They're both alcoholics. And so by the time I was 13, I was pretty much raising my little brothers. It was Lord of the Flies at my house. Like I said, they never got married. So they were living together, not living together. We lived 12 places at one, in 1 year. We moved 12 times. It was always, it was chaos.
Not a lot of consistency.
None.
Yeah.
No. Dad didn't do consistency. So
because he lives out of the side of the box.
Correct. He didn't believe in budgets. He didn't believe in consistency, and he didn't believe in rules.
Oh.
And so he was a real estate developer. He was a photographer. He was a lot of things. But we'd either have a lot of money or no money. And that caused a lot of instability. And so by the time I was 17, I was on my own at 16. And by 17, I decided I was smart enough to get married. And so 2 weeks after I turned 18, I got married.
Wow.
To a youth pastor.
What was the reasoning for that? Was it to get out of the household?
I was already out. No.
Okay.
It was, I wanted safety. Okay. I had grown up with so much chaos, instability, and uncertainty that I really was seeking. Now I know what I was doing. I was seeking safety.
Seeking safety, yeah.
And so I got married.
And on that age, safety is marriage.
Right.
In essence.
It is.
Right? Because if you're married, what could go wrong? Like, I don't need to.
Exactly.
Life's safe, container.
We'll live in one house. You'll take care of me and everything will be calm.
Yeah.
Not the case. So by about third year in, I was starting to realize I could tell I was not going to last long. By year 6, I was partying hard. I had basically said the Christian thing isn't working for me. I'm losing my mind. And I found these friends that lived across the street, and I had a great time. Much to my husband's chagrin, I was not going to stay pregnant and barefoot in the kitchen. So by year 7, I said, I'm out. He asked me to go to counseling. I said yes, did 6 months, and it was a done deal. So left that, fast forward, rebounded and married an atheist artist, did that for 10 years. That didn't end well. He cheated on me prolifically. So that was unfortunate. And then after that marriage ended, I got involved again and remarried, and I was married 20 years to my last husband. That situation really was rough because we were soulmates. I thought we were soulmates, but he had a sex addiction I was unaware of that lasted about 18 years of our marriage, and he contracted a deadly STD that I didn't have, thank God. But I was very clear that this was not going to be a relationship I could stay in and be safe. Again, no safety.
No safety. Yeah.
So through all of that, my journey through my life, because of all the lack of safety and stability, I started really craving it and creating it in my own world. That's how I kind of got into the personal development space. My oldest son, Brooke, had been mentored by my little brother from the time he was 4. And Mark went into real estate after he got out of the Navy SEALs. And he had been grooming Brooke on Tony Robbins and all the old greats, Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, and all those guys, right?
Yeah.
And so by the time Brooke turned 18, again, didn't want to follow my rules because we're not the rules family. He went into real estate instead of going to college. And as a mom, I was like, oh, come on, dude, really? Go to school. And my brother goes, no, he's good. I'm like, Mark, come on. Brooke went into real estate and he was a sales savant. He'd been groomed on it his whole life. Kid was a rock star. But after he did real estate, residential for about 3, maybe 4 years, he got bored with it. And he left that and went into coaching sales.
Oh, nice.
Now that collided with me getting diagnosed with MS. A very unfortunate thing to hear when you're an achiever and a high D, like me, type A. And so I spiraled pretty hard, pretty fast. Got suicidal. Literally, when the doctors basically tell you go to bed, your life is over, that's the best case scenario that they offer you. I believed the Western medicine philosophy, bought into it, and completely lost my mind. Well, during that time, Brooke was aware of that. He instinctively knew. We've always been really tight. And he bought me a ticket to go to this event that the coaching company he was working for every year had an event, 5 days. 7,000 people would come out for this thing. And every year they would announce the theme of the event at opening night. It was this big reveal thing. And so he bought me a ticket. And when your kids pay, a lot of money for anything, even if it's underwater basket weaving, you go.
Yeah, you go. Yeah.
So he asked my brother to pick me up and bring me. So he made sure I got there in one piece. I didn't want to go. I went under duress. I was a mess and got there, and we're waiting for the big reveal to happen. And I'm a nervous wreck. All I want to do is go drink. I want to just go get numb somewhere. And the guy comes out, and it was a big, presentation thing. But the theme of that event for those 5 days was how to live like you were dying, based on Tim McGraw's song.
Wow.
And I just sat there.
And your son didn't know this?
No, he did not know.
Holy
he just knew.
Shit.
He just knew I needed to be in the room.
Yeah.
And I sat there and bawled through this whole thing. I was an absolute mess.
What were your thoughts? Because you've got to be thinking,
is this a joke?
You knew about this. This is set up.
Right.
Like, where's the cameras? Is this an intervention?
I felt like I was punked.
Right?
Seriously. And Mark even my brother looked at me and goes, well, this is appropriate. I'm like, oh my God, what's happening?
Yeah.
It was one of those moments, and I've had several of them, but it was a defining moment where I knew in that moment God had me. And up to that point, God and I had been in a Mexican standoff for quite some time for a lot of different reasons, this one being tantamount. And it was in that moment that I just heard his voice. And I heard him say, you've got a purpose. And so a year later, I was a coach for that company. I got certified and went through the gauntlet and coached for them for 8 years. And then the market of 2008 crashed. And Brooke had left to go work for his bucket list. He went to work for Tony Robbins.
Oh, yeah.
Became Tony's #1 sales guy. Kid, again, savant. Cool story. He was, he's in it. He's got his headphones on, his stand-up desk, and he's just jamming. And somebody comes around behind him and taps him on the shoulder. And he's like, turns around, he looks up, and it's Tony.
Oh, shit.
And Tony's 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
Like 6
tall dude.
Big, massive. His hands are like baseball gloves.
Yeah.
And Brooke, his immediate thought was, shit, I'm fired. and Tony goes, and he looks around, he's kind of standing there, and he goes, hi. And Tony goes, I just need to meet the guy who's blown doors on all my metrics. Who the hell are you? And what are you doing?
Wow.
And he goes, I need to talk to you. And from that moment on, Brooke was with Tony for a good 15, 16 years and became one of the top executives in the company and ran 3 divisions.
Wow.
And so when Brooke moved to Tony, he said, Mom, you should come work for Tony. It's more in your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
That's where I met Jimmy Rex. Jimmy was one of my clients.
Yeah.
And so that's how I evolved into the personal development space. Basically, my brother and my son dragged me into it, kicking and screaming, and then getting sick, and then all the different things that happened in my relationships. That's how I ended up here.
Do you ever think back and be like, what if? What if I hadn't gone to that event that day?
Oh, all the time.
What if I'd have snuck out and gone to the bar and gone drank or gone and got numb?
Right. Or drove my car into a tree.
Or just never showed up.
Right.
Just didn't go that day. Like the path that your life, when people talk about, these little, the decisions we make every day, big or small, right? That one small decision had a life-changing effect for you. Like change your entire life.
Yep.
And you could not, it's unfathomable. The things
one
that,
thing.
the one little microburst.
Here's this young kid bought, it was probably a $3,000 ticket, maybe more. And he put it together and made it happen. And then my brother was on board, and all the things that it took, I really didn't want to be there. I was not happy. All the
little things that just had to come together for that one moment. That's really powerful.
Well,
really powerful shit.
It's really, and here's the thing that's so crazy about it is that all that time leading up to that, all the things that have happened, the ugly things, that dominoes that hit my life, I was getting angrier and angrier and resenting it and blaming. And I was just pissed at the world because it seemed unfortunate. Why couldn't I get a break? Why do I have to have the crazy family, where everybody knows that we're moving again and we've been evicted for the 30th time and all the shit that went with it. And when I was at that first event and I heard God say, you have a purpose, your life has meaning. It was in that moment that I started to ask better questions. Okay, well, what's it look like? What am I supposed to? Yeah, that's it. That's where that came from.
That is I have to say, one of the most powerful statements I think I've ever heard.
Oh,
And it's a statement that I use daily. And it's also a statement that I promote and share with so many people that I know. And that in Moab, when you had that whole list of questions, it was 5 of them, but the one question in the middle, question 3, where is the gift in this?
yeah.
And I was like, is this happening to me or happening for me? And it was like, wow. And you can put that question to anything in life. Anything. You have a deal go bad in business. Where's the gift in this? Is it happening to me or for me? You crash your car. Where's the gift in this? Is it happening to me or for me? And like some people turn around and say, well, there's no gift in you crashing your car. Well, really?
Yeah.
You've been thinking about buying a new car for the last couple of years. You can't afford it. You had an accident. It's been written off. You're getting a new car. Where's the gift? You're getting a new car.
You walked away.
And you walked away completely unscathed.
Exactly.
There's the gift. Or you lost a deal. Well, where's the gift in that? Well, it allows you to actually now focus on this deal, which is bringing you more revenue and isn't a pain in your ass like this one is.
Exactly.
There's always a gift. You just got to dig for it. And sometimes you got to get your hands real dirty and you got to dig real deep to find it.
But it's there.
But it's there.
It's always there.
Yeah.
My little brother and I went to our first Unleash the Power Within with Tony, and Mark had just gotten diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. My dad had died from it about 3 years before this. And he had just come out of surgery where they'd pulled about 20 lymph nodes out. And they hadn't tested them yet, but the prognosis wasn't great. The doctor said, these aren't good. And so he had a drain on his hip because he had them taken from his groin. And we're sitting in the back seat. And Tony made a statement, I'll never forget it. And he goes, your worst day will one day be your best day. And I remember sitting in the back row going, you don't know my worst day. And my brother's sitting back there and he's pissed. We're both in a horrible place.
Yeah.
And he had an experience where he was angry that he had cancer. We're achievers. We don't have time for this stuff. Don't ruin my world by slow me down by getting me sick. And he was sitting in the back row and he goes, I heard an audible voice say to me, if you could take that cancer for your girls, would you do it? Mm-hmm. It makes me emotional every time I hear him say it. Mm-hmm. And he goes, yes. And he said, there are parents in this room who won't get that luxury. Stop bitching about your cancer. Oof. And I'm like, oof. So from that concept, your worst day will one day be your best day. When I heard that I had MS, I was so angry. I was so beyond out of control. But if I hadn't gotten sick, I wouldn't have made different life choices. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have given or winded back my party lifestyle that was pretty out of control. Mm-hmm. We had to sell our house in Havasu because I couldn't do the heat. We had to get rid of our cigarette boat because I couldn't be on the water, 12-hour, 20-hour days, drinking all day long. Yeah. So all of the things that I thought were the worst things that happened in my life, I was able to go back and see that they were the best things that happened in my life. Yeah. And so when I tell my clients, your one day is going to be your best day. Mm-hmm. They'll fight me just like I did. But when you get beyond it and you see that you pivoted, you made choices, you changed your life, you changed who your partner was. If your partner's cheated on you and it's your worst thing ever, what's beautiful is when you find that next person who doesn't. Mm-hmm. Or when you realize that you could have been like me. Finding out for me was the gift. Because if I had gotten what my husband had, I would have died. Like it would have been an almost instantaneous death. Yeah. Because you add that to MS and it would have been over. Mm-hmm. But I didn't. And so all of the things that happened in my life laid out, it could be a midweek TV movie about 5 times over, but each and every hard thing gave me strength and tenacity and gave me a skill set to help people anywhere, anytime. Mm-hmm. And that was when we worked for Tony, my brother also happened to be my boss at that point. He went to work for Tony too. But he approached the coaching training the same way we did with SEALs. You need to be able to coach anyone, anywhere, anytime.
Absolutely.
And so
everybody on that team has to know everybody else's job too.
Completely.
They know their own job and they know everybody else's. In case a man goes down, they can pick up the slack.
That's exactly it.
It's exactly it.
So that's where my journey led me. And then,
That's amazing. So what's some of the things that you do or that you've learned over time that you do now daily, just as force of habit over decades of doing it, that keep you in that positive mindset to protect you from when shit hits the fan? You've got a protection level there already of like, okay, yeah, I can deal with this. So what are some of the things that you put into place daily that keep you checked and balanced?
It's a great question. And it's really an important one for my clients is that you want to build the muscle when life's good. Like that's when you need to build the habit. of all these things that I've built into my life. The primary one that I became addicted to was gratitude. Gratitude, because I used to really battle anxiety because I was always living with which scenario is going to go sideways. I've got to have 15 plan Bs, C, Ds, and Es. So I was always in vigilance. Where is it going to go wrong? And that always came from a place of anger or fear. Well, gratitude kicks fear's ass. You cannot be grateful and in anxiety or fear simultaneously. It's emotionally and intellectually impossible.
Wow.
And so I started a gratitude practice where I set alarms in my phone. So 5 times a day, my alarm would go off, and I'd have to stop and have a moment of gratitude. If I was driving, I could do it. If I was in a meeting, I could actually do it because it would just buzz.
Yeah.
And I'd go, okay, I need to find something to be grateful for. Well, then I baked it into things I did all the time. Like every time I take a shower, I'd let the water hit and I'd have a moment of gratitude. And then I stacked on that and I bought shower crayons, and every morning I'd write something new I was grateful for on the shower wall. And in about 3 months, it looked like a beautiful mind in my shower, which I didn't even know until somebody stayed at my house.
That's so cool. I love that.
It's awesome. But over time, what happens now is anytime the water hits me,
You're grateful.
I'm grateful. Getting in my car, turning my car on. If you've ever had a car that didn't work, you know what it's like when your car does turn over. It's like, yes, winning. Grateful. Driving, working and going to a job, walking to the office. I'm grateful I have a place to go to work. Walking back into my house. I'm grateful I have a house.
I love that.
And it was huge. Gratitude was big.
That's really powerful. Yeah, you are right. I just thinking back with like some of the exercises we've done with We Are the Day, when you write down like your gratitude list and stuff, It's really hard to be miserable when you're being thankful and grateful for the things you have.
Yeah.
And I've struggled in the past to write gratitude lists. Because, I'm looking around and I'm like, what am I grateful for? And sometimes it's not that you're ungrateful. Sometimes you just can't see gratitude.
That's right.
You need to learn to appreciate and see gratitude. And, some people come from dark places. I've been in a dark place, and you can have the most amazing day and it just isn't sunny enough.
Right.
So it really takes time to actually think and act on gratitude, but it doesn't have to be a detailed list. Like you said, it could be, I've written gratitude lists where I'm like, I'm grateful for my AC working.
Amen.
It's 105 degrees outside. I'm grateful for my AC.
Do you know how ungrateful you are when it's not
when
working?
It's not working?
You know what it's like.
But just simple things like I'm grateful for the hot water in my shower. I'm grateful for the coffee pot that I have. Just little
that you have coffee.
That I have coffee. They have clean drinking water. You don't have to go down this like, I'm so grateful that I've got X amount of dollars and X amount of properties and businesses and employees and just be grateful for the little things.
It's the little things we forget.
Yeah. And really a very, very interesting point is I've actually found myself being grateful or recognizing gratitude when I don't have something.
Mm-hmm.
So I've actually if something runs out or something ends, I'm like, man, I really missed that. God, I was really grateful for that.
Yeah.
It's like, well, why didn't you appreciate when you had it? You always appreciate once you don't have it anymore.
But that's the beauty. When you get into the habit of seeing it before you lose it, you get to embrace it in the now, right?
Yeah.
And
but it is difficult. It's not easy because
but that's why it's a muscle.
Life does throw shit at you from every direction, left, right, and center. And sometimes you could be up to your neck in shit and be like, where's the gift in this? Well, the gift is you could be past your eyeballs. You're only up to your neck, But
that's why the time to build those muscles is when life is okay, when life is good, copacetic.
Yeah.
You don't try and do it when you're in the firefight. You don't learn to fight the fire in the firefight.
In the firefight, yeah. So what's some of the tools you can use when you're in the firefight? Because I'm sure there's people listening, and I've been in that firefight too. Like, what are some of the tools when the dark days are dark and the sunny days aren't sunny? What can you use to start learning gratitude?
I think that it's one, you have to start asking better questions. When it's dark, you ask the same thing over and over again. Why is this happening to me? This always happens to me. I can't believe this is happening again. Why can't it go right for me? And so we tend to pattern our inner dialogue when things go dark. So you'll start to watch, and because I coach so many people, you'll see the pattern. I can see it coming because we run the same thing over and over. It's a survival skill for a lot of us. Mm-hmm. But over time, if you can rewrite that story. That's why I have those 5 questions. Those came in one of my darkest hours when I was really thinking, I'm going to go under here. What can I use? And I have to go through those. They're my break glass list. Where in this is the gift? What if this is happening for me and not to me? What can I see that's great about this? What if other options exist?
That's a great question. What if other options
What
exist?
if other options? That was a hard one for me.
Great question.
But it's huge.
It is. It's such a good
What if
question.
I'm wrong?
Yeah. What if I'm wrong? What if there's other options?
What if they weren't talking about me?
Yeah.
What if, because women do this all the time. They assume I didn't get invited to the birthday party. They don't like me. And we do the rodeo, right? They always leave me out. I don't have any friends. Nobody loves me. But what if I'm wrong?
Yeah.
What if they didn't think I'd want to go?
Yeah.
What if they were sensitive to the fact that I didn't have the money or my kids were sick?
Or what if they just got the wrong email or phone number?
Correct. Exactly.
It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. Yeah, yeah.
But I built the muscle on those habits when life is okay.
Yeah.
Because when the biggies hit, I don't want to be scrambling for that then. I want those built into my identity. And so when the last big thing that kicked my world upside down was when I found out that my husband had this deadly STD in that moment. And it was it will live with me forever. I remember when he said the words out loud, that he'd been having sex with men, that it started with one of my closest friends, and that that we knew he was sick. I had a decision to make. And Tony talks about this. It's in your moments of decision that your destiny is made. And I sat there in that moment because I had built the muscle over and over and over again. My first question wasn't, how am I going to kill you? Which had happened before.
Yeah,
in another
you've already
life.
asked that question and you've already got that answer. Don't worry.
Already got that one.
Yeah.
But in that moment, it wasn't my go-to question anymore. My question was, okay, Melissa, where in this is the gift? Where's the gift for you? And it was like, I didn't have that. Was it devastating? Yes. But in that moment, I could be clear. I was okay. And I knew I could see the gift. And it was built over time before I got there. So gratitude's big, a gratitude journal. I have my clients do gratitude 10 things in the morning and 10 things at night. I mean, it's like it's a non-negotiable. If they battle anxiety, I have them set up alarms on their phone. Set up your time frames. Every time the alarm goes off, you've got to come up with 3 things that you're grateful for in this moment. It could be hot water. If you've ever had your hot water turned off, which I have, not fun. Don't like cold showers. I don't care what cold plunge people say. I don't like it.
Yeah.
So you have a different degree of gratitude with what you've known you've lost in the past.
Yeah.
But you build it over time, and then the muscle is there when you need it. Gratitude, meditation, and prayer. Meditation saved my life. And so I built a meditation practice, and I built that into my world. And when things got really rough, I would meditate 1 to 3 minutes between clients. It was just clockwork. I had to do that to stay sane, to bring my best for them.
So it's almost like those are your anchor points.
Yeah.
You hear a lot of people talk, right? And one of the first people I actually heard talk about anchor points was actually Dwayne Johnson, The Rock.
Oh, yeah.
He talks about, he works out every day, and he calls it the Iron Paradise. He has a gym which he travels with, like a whole full set gym.
Wow.
And he says it's his daily anchor. It doesn't matter whether it's 3 o'clock in the morning, whether it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, whether he's had a full 18-day shoot and he's tired. He has to get that workout in, not for his physique, but it's for mental, and it's his daily anchor.
Yeah.
He knows that 1 hour is his 1 hour. It's a non-negotiable. Nobody can take it away from him. It doesn't matter what time of the day it is. That's doors locked, music on, my time, my anchor.
That's right.
And it's where he resets his day, resets his mind, and answers the questions that are probably going around in his brain, and sets the tone, and then moves forward. So I think, when you hear you say those things like the meditation and meditating in between clients, like you have this anchor point to keep you calm and stable.
Well, my first book is going to be called The Crazy Shit Keeps Me Sane. Because that literally was all these things I used to argue with my brother about. I'm not doing affirmations. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Not going to say that the sky is beautiful when it's raining outside. I'm not going to win the lottery ticket if I say it 100 times on the couch. I fought him tooth, fang, and nail, man. I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And I had to eat those words. But all these different things I used to be in argument about, I had to look at the quality of his life. And that's what inspired me, was when I started to see Brooke and my brother doing these crazy things, and other people. And then as I moved into the personal development world and saw the value, and then saw my clients' lives change with it, there's no argument. It's like, it was my fuel. And it's also been one of those things that when you watch it with other people, when you can see them use it and have their lives change, it adds value and power to it.
Yeah.
So Yeah.
Yeah, we had the chance to meet both of your sons, Brooke and Chance,
My babies.
in Moab. Yeah, they're great human beings. Like the apple does not fall far from the tree because they are such beautiful, caring, loving, lightful people.
So proud of them.
And I was actually very fortunate, or a lot of us were very fortunate to spend time to talk to Brooke and Chance over those 3 days. And both of them have very interesting stories. Like you said, Brooke working with Tony, you working with Tony. And I know Chance had gone through his demons and all that sort of stuff. Right. As their mother, it can be very easy, I'm assuming, that, with the years of the training and the coaching that you've done, that if your baby boys come to mom, how do you not fall into do as I say, sit down, write this down, because this is what Tony will tell you to do. How do you differentiate from being mom to being coach?
Oh, God. It's so funny. Brooke and I we know how to dance in that conversation really well.
Gotcha.
Chance is a different entity. And so to give you an example to that very question, I had been coaching back to back. I was in rhythm every hour. I'm on it. I'm in the zone. And we go to dinner. And he shows up and he slides into the booth and he's in a foul mood. And I'm like, I'm not having this. And so we start talking and I start going into coaching mode. And he does one of these. He goes, stop talking. And I go, what is wrong with you? And he goes, don't effing coach me right now. Stop talking. And he got up and walked away. And I'm like, I guess I was coming a little strong. Better change that up a little bit. I'll back it off. But he came back and he sat down and I go, okay, I'm not going to coach you, but you need to understand something. I'm also not going to let you sit and wallow in your shit. So we can have a dialogue or you can change what you're going to talk about because I'm not going to support this. Mm-hmm. You want to go into that story and stay there. That's totally your prerogative, but I don't have to be witness to it and I don't have to participate in it. So you choose. And he goes, okay, fair. And we're good.
Wow.
So yes, Chance struggles with it more than Brooke because Brooke's a coach.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, the other piece about it that's really beautiful is that Chance really had, because of my ex-husband, he kind of had a rough 16 years living with his stepdad. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the things I absolutely adore about you is how you love those girls. There's nothing more, I'm going to sidebar. There's nothing more important to a woman with children to have another man love on them more than their own dad. Mm-hmm. It's your superpower, and I want to honor you for it because every day I get to witness it. I know what that means to Andrea, but to those girls.
Thank you.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Just sidebar there.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me.
Yeah, because I also got to see what it's like when they don't.
Yeah.
And so Chance's life was hard. And he went into the Navy, had a really bad situation happen, a bad billet, got screwed big time in the Navy. And he was on a ship for 6 years. He started out as the honor grad, the RPOC. The kid was a rock star and had a commanding officer that didn't like him and made sure that he did not get where he was going to go. Set him up to fail. Last test, the commanding officer had already welcomed him into the base. He was the number one guy to go. He was going to be special ops diver. And this one commanding officer did not like that he was that good and gave him the worst kid in the class and almost drowned him. So he went from being the shit to being a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And 6 years he was suicidal on a ship in Japan. I couldn't get to him. And I was really worried about him. And I was really worried about what had happened that I had been witness to and allowed and tolerated with him growing up. And I'll never forget, he called me one time. He actually got into shore and he called me and he goes, Mom, I just need to let you know something. He goes, even though his stepdad, and I won't use his name, his stepdad was an absolute asshole, that he was an asshole to me. He goes, Mom, there's a gift in it. And he goes, the gift is that I can handle anything. These guys are not going to break me. And it was such as much as he resists it, he's a beast. And he is a workout freak. He works 2 to 3 hours a day. Mm-hmm. And he's very committed to his outcomes. But he struggles internally with a lot of times because he doesn't have a true purpose right now. And I have to be careful not to jump in and try and fix it. Yeah. That's been the biggest struggle, is watching him suffer.
Do you feel it helps him by suffering or helps him to go through that suffering? Will it make, in your mind, do you think him going through that suffering, when he finally gets to his purpose, it'll be a much bigger purpose versus you assisting him through the shit, gets to his purpose, and it doesn't really hit or land because the power's not behind it.
Well, the thing is, he has to be the hero in his own rescue.
Yeah.
And my problem as a coach and as a mom, I want to rush in and fix it. And I can't. He has to work it through, because if I do the heavy lift, he won't have the muscle. And when he needs it most, it won't be there.
Yeah.
So he's working through some of his own demons right now through music. He's learning to play flamenco guitar, which came out of left field, but he is. He's an insane artist. And he likes to shoot things. He has guns. He works in a gun store. But he's going to figure it out.
Yeah.
I have trust that it won't come like Brooks did. Brooke was the Zen guy. He figured his stuff out a lot earlier. Chance needs bigger bricks. Well,
and it's tough too, speaking personally from an ex-military man, 10 years in the military.
Yeah.
And I left the military in 2011. April 2011 was my last day in the military, and I moved to America in June 2011.
Wow.
So from 10 years in the military to leaving home, leaving my family,
and
moving to a different country with literally 3 suitcases and a footlocker in the space of 2 months after 10 years of being in the military.
What caused you to come to the U.S.? I've never gotten to know.
My ex-wife.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So I was in the U.S. in 2008 in Tucson with the British military, and I was doing a pre-Afghanistan exercise. And while I was there, I met a girl in the bar. We dated for the period that I was there, and then we stayed in touch and long distance dated. And 2 years later, in 2011, I retired and moved over full time. So that's what brought me to the US.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but for me, like leaving the military, talking about hot shit to a piece of shit, I had been offered by a Department of Defense company, Raytheon. I'd been offered a job because I was very highly trained. I was very specialized in what I did, and it was going to be a 6-figure salary. This is going to be amazing. So I moved to the US, sat the interview, and they said, "You look great on paper. What we need to see is your citizenship, and you're good to go." And I said, "Well, I'm not a citizen. I'm a permanent resident. I'll be a citizen in 5 years legally." And they said, "Well, come back in 5 years." That was it. End of the interview. Door shut.
Oh, so you know what that feels like.
So I went from being hot shit in the military to working a $8 an hour job, doing 15 to 16 hours a day, foreclosing properties in 2011. I foreclosed over 2,000 properties.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Just
oh my God.
hauling out trash and furniture out of people's homes, changing locks. It was
watching the tragedy, the pain, the suffering.
Oh, yeah. I've had people crying on the doorstep as I'm evicting them out of their house. So you've gone from helping people for the last 10 years. I went to Iraq and Afghanistan.
Right.
I've gone from helping people to literally evicting people.
Yeah.
Like I went from hot shit to piece of shit. Like everybody hated me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's no redeeming it. There's no redeeming
There's no redemption there. There's no gift in this.
No.
I'm taking your house. And the gift is I'm being paid $10 an hour for this.
Oh my God.
There was no gift in this. And so, as you can imagine, self-worth just plummets. And where's my purpose? And I just bounced from job to job to job to job. And until, finally I met Andrea and figured it out, and she supported me and kind of got into real estate. And now I've kind of found my purpose, but it's tough.
Yeah.
It really is tough.
It is.
And not just for ex-military members, but I can understand where Chance is coming from. You're a part of an elite unit.
That's right.
You're part of a brotherhood. And especially if that brotherhood turns on you,
right,
which may or may not, like that completely can ruin your world.
It went
and
sideways.
And that's because that's like your family. That's your home away from home.
Yeah.
And when you lose that, the sad thing, I think America does such an amazing job of this. The UK doesn't do such a great job. But literally my last day in the British military was like, okay, we need all your uniform back. We need your boots back. We need you to sign all these papers. We need your identification card. And once I literally handed all that in, they went, "Great, thank you very much for your service." And go away. That was it. That was it. They literally took my identification card, drove me off the base and said,
left you there.
"Thank you very much for your 10 years of service."
I think that was one of the things that was hard for him. And what he's struggling with now, ironically, my brother and I were just talking about this. They're both my brothers, because my brother served the Navy too.
Mm-hmm.
They're grieving the America they went to fight for.
Amen.
And that's something I don't think we're talking about. Mm-hmm. But there are a lot of vets right now that are grieving the America they went and gave their life for.
Absolutely.
And it is really, I have a really hard time because I get really on my soapbox about it because I've watched the suffering of these people that sacrificed. And I know what it is to have a family member in the military. You don't know where they are. They can't be there for holidays. You don't know if they're okay. It's just, it is a sacrifice to keep us safe.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing that's happening right now that is a silent struggle for a lot of people, is the America they went to fight for isn't the America today.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely it isn't. People don't realize this, or they don't realize it until they think about it. But since 2000s or 2001, we were in war. We've been in constant war across the world.
That's right.
We've gone from Iraq to Afghanistan to Lebanon to Syria, back to the Middle East.
Yep.
We've been in
Back and
constant
forth.
state and war. And if we're not at war, there are other countries at war that we are a part of,
Right.
or at least supporting, Ukraine and Russia and all this thing. It's just a constant shit show.
Yeah.
And you look at the world that we're living in now, and God almighty, if only there were survivors of the Second World War that were still around that we could see today, they'd want to die.
They would be horrified.
They would be horrified at what we've turned this world into.
Horrified. My dad, that's one of the things I am grateful for, that he's not here to witness this. He would be, I'd have to be dealing with him on a daily basis just for one, which would be just beyond.
Yeah.
But the loss of values, and that's what they fought for, were values.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what I think is missing right now in our society. We've lost our way, we've lost our purpose, and our kids and our vets and the people that have fought for this country are losing. They don't have a purpose. They don't see where they fit in.
No.
And there's no place to go.
Well, and the sad thing too is there are so many topics that we should be focusing on and dealing with,
Right.
that we can't because we're sidelined by other dipshit topics that pull our attention.
That's
Like,
right.
why am I putting my attention on this over here when this is a bigger problem?
Well, there's a point to that.
Yeah, this is a 21st century problem which you've created. This is a global problem which needs to be fixed.
Right.
And you're pulling my attention away because...
But that's smoke and mirrors. It's the bait and switch.
Exactly.
If you pay attention to this noise, you won't see the big problem that's really going to take you out over here.
Yeah.
And that's what we're now living in.
Yeah.
We haven't been paying attention for the last 20 years.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
now our country is it's dissolving before our eyes.
Yeah.
And it's a really big thing that's out there. And I think that grieving over the loss of our country is a big deal.
Well, I know that, and this is going completely left field, but this talks about how crazy our world has got. I was listening to another podcast, a sports podcast, and they were talking about Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia, shitload of money.
Right.
We all know that. And they are buying their way into sports. They have bought their way into the boxing world. A lot of the heavyweight boxing is all handled in Saudi Arabia because they pay bigger purses.
Right.
They've now got themselves into soccer, or football as I call it, and so they've got into that world. And now the Saudi Arabians own the Live golf tournament.
I was just going to say, didn't they just do it with golf
so
too?
they bought the Live golf tournament, right? So a really interesting podcast with Rory McIlroy, who's a great golfer. And they were talking about, the whole Live thing because he's absolutely big against it from the get-go. And so they asked him, just out of curiosity, like, well, what was the contract that was put in front of you for you to go to Live? And he said, they never put one in front of me. He said, because I'm so against it from the get-go, they did not want me. And he goes, but I do know that there is another top golfer that just signed for them for $400 million for 5 years, not including winnings. Just his contract is $400 million over 5 years, just to play golf for that company.
That's insane.
Yes.
That's insane.
Where is the value in that?
There's not.
But the question is, you've now got kids who are looking at this going, oh, I'm going to get into this sport, not for the love of it, but for the money. In it. And then the passion goes.
That's right.
And then we're losing golf, a game that's been around for centuries. It came from Scottish tradition. Like, it's a gentleman's sport. It's now just been overshadowed by money and sponsorships. Right. Like, people just stop watching that. I'm a huge Formula One fan. I have been since I was a kid. I used to watch that with my dad on a Sunday. And now it's all sponsorships and money and blah, blah, and more races and more. I'm like, it's getting overwhelming.
Yeah.
We're losing the value of what we have because of greed.
That's right.
And that's crippling.
It's horrifying.
And how do we show our children the value in things? How do we show our children the value in the small things when everything's just being devalued anyway?
It's a challenge. it's funny because when I watch Brooke and Rain, because I have 2 grandkids, they're 13 and 10. And when Brooke decided to homeschool back when Bodhi was in what, I don't know, he was 6, 7 years old, 5, 6, 7, something like that. I'm like, oh, no. He needs to go to school. Let's have a conversation.
He's got to go eat worms.
And Brooke, being my child, went and had, prior to the decision, researched where the school system started. Went all the way back and did deep dives into what was the true premise of the public school system, where did it originate, and what was its value now. Mm-hmm. And he goes, there's not a chance in hell I'm putting my kids in public school. And he goes, I'm even reconsidering charter schools right now. And I go, well, why? The public school system was set up based on and modeled after the prison system. And they did it to manage the poor people.
Wow.
And so that's how it originated. But over time, the curriculum that I grew up in, we had a different value system. And so parents sent their kids to school because the parents were in alignment with the school system. They were all in the same valued situation, right? Mm-hmm. Well, over time, parents stopped paying attention to what was being taught. There was an assumption made, right? They're teaching my values. And then there were things that they were hearing, but they couldn't really put their finger on. And it wasn't until COVID, where COVID was a gift, was showing parents what was happening in the classroom and what was really being taught. Mm-hmm. And it was so fascinating because Brooke and Rain, their kids they didn't skip a beat. They didn't even know COVID other than having to wear, being told they had to wear a mask, which we didn't really do. Family, no rules. But their world didn't change. Yeah. And one of the things that Brooke has done, and I think they've done a really good job of, is they make, they live large. They have a really beautiful house. Their kids have traveled all over the world. But they are very, very intentional about cultivating the core of who they are as individuals and what are their core values. Mm-hmm. And we need to start bringing that back to our kids. It's not about your shoes, which we love. We like the gear. My kids love gear, but we want to teach them what life is like, even that you can be happy without the gear.
Yeah.
And so it goes back to the practices like gratitude. My grandkids started meditating when they were 3. They've learned they've modeled these habits after their parents. And so they've found value in things and they have a different worldview.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what we need to go back to. Mm-hmm. We need to rein in all this other BS that's spinning around out there and go back to basic core values.
I agree with you. I look at I say this quite openly. I was never a big fan of school. I was not an academic, not at all. Class clown, to be in fact. I was very good at that.
I'm so surprised.
Yeah. So I didn't value a lot of education. Obviously, I've got daughters, and I do, and I'm like, y'all gonna learn. But I look at some of the things that I was taught in school to what my kids are not being taught.
That's right.
And I'm like, man, what? Like, I've talked about this several times on the podcast. We used to have lessons every week on religious education.
That's right.
I would learn about all the different religions. I would learn about world history, Romans and this and that, and Alexander the Great and all these sort of things. And I'd also learn a lot about British history. There isn't a lot of British history that I don't know. But then I speak to Americans about American history and they're like, I don't know that.
They don't even know who the president is.
This is your country. Learn this shit. But
they don't know the Constitution.
Yeah.
They don't understand how our government works. Mm-hmm. Half of them don't even know what the president does.
Yeah. They don't even know the branches of government. Like it's, but I look at things, I'm like, well, are my kids missing out from not being taught different religions in school? Are they, aren't they? There could be an argument either way for that, but it doesn't disserve me by knowing all these different religions.
Is there a downside to having knowledge?
There's no downside to knowledge. So why don't we teach that?
Yeah.
Is it because that if you're a Jewish family and your child comes home and tells you they've been learning about Christianity, is that going to upset you? Or is a Muslim family going to, if their child comes home and they've learned about Judaism, is that going to upset you? Like, why can't we just learn?
Why can't we teach it so that they understand each other?
And if you learn that, then it creates values around religion.
Right.
And that's where wars stop happening over religion.
Can't we teach them mutual respect?
Yes.
The right to have a difference of opinion? This is the thing that just is just killing me right now. We have lost the ability to disagree. Mm-hmm. I can no longer come to you and discuss my difference of opinion with you without you blowing it up on social media and the keyboard warriors going to town and annihilating my opinion.
Yeah.
And so now you have a society that's shut down and they don't talk. Mm-hmm. They don't articulate their truth.
So true.
And that's why the bad things they're getting ahead of steam because the silent majority has been silent.
Mm-hmm.
And when we did, did you come to Limitless?
No. I wasn't there, no.
I got to hear, who was it? It was Andy.
Frisella?
Yes. And at the end, he was on a tear, and I literally wanted to stand up and like standing ovation. He finally said it out loud. He said, the time for being silent is fucking over. Mm-hmm. We need to stand up and take back what is rightfully ours and bring back the core values that started this country.
Yeah.
And I'm like, finally, somebody's saying it out loud.
Well, that's what the founding fathers did.
No kidding.
They sat down and had a discussion.
Because we didn't like your people.
Yeah. I know. We don't talk about that. It's still a little raw, to be honest. Every 4th of July, Andrea throws a box of tea in the pool and she's like, there you go, babe. But that's what this country was founded on.
That's right.
Discussions and differences and figuring it out.
That's right.
We've got 13 territories or colonies. We've got to figure this out. How do they all play together? And
we were a melting pot for all the cultures to come to.
Absolutely.
And now we're making that all wrong. Now we're trying to make it bad that America welcomed all these people.
Yeah.
It is insanity to me. And so watching these younger guys, like Chance's age, in their early 30s, they don't have right now, because I'm listening to them all talk, and I coach a lot of them, plus some of them are in Watt. They don't know they're going to be able to ever afford to buy a house. Mm-hmm. They don't know that they're going to have a job they can support a family on and not have to live with their parents. They don't know what their purpose should look like, because now masculinity is being annihilated from every front. They've emasculated the men on our planet, in our country.
Yeah.
And so there's so much confusion about where to go. And I think that if we went back to the basics with our kids and we taught them about what it is to disagree, I don't have to believe what you believe.
Yeah.
I can still love you and disagree with you.
It's amazing.
Why aren't we teaching that?
Yeah.
Instead, we're teaching them to hate each other. And that's the thing that's pissing me off.
Yeah.
This whole, new culture they're weaving in and out of the philosophy in school districts, it's not teaching love and acceptance. Mm-hmm. They are the foundation of racism.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They're the ones doing this.
Difference and disdain.
Completely.
Yeah, because if you promote difference and disdain, then you can control the masses.
That is correct.
You can control the hatred.
That's right.
You can't control love.
Nope.
You can't control the amount of that one person loves another, or one person, how many people love other people.
You can't stop
that. But you can
that.
control hatred. Because if you control hatred by controlling the people, you control the narrative.
That's right.
And once you can control them, you steer them. It's as simple as that. So we've got blacks hating whites. We've got men hating women. We've got kids hating adults, and da 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 da.
What do you think they do with COVID?
Yeah.
If you don't vax, you don't love mom.
Yeah.
You're killing mom. You didn't vax. You can no longer be a member of our family. Yeah. Do you know there are still families that no longer talk to each other for that one argument?
Oh, I know. It's insanity.
It is.
We are driving a wedge between, and if it's not COVID and that kind of fell by the side, let's find something else.
They're going to find another one.
It's just, and then it's political. It's ugly. It's just constantly ugly.
It's constantly ugly. But so in everything, there's a gift, right? So as ugly as that is.
So where is the gift in all this? There we go.
You know where the gift is? The gift is people like Watt that want to change the world. Mm-hmm. They have an opportunity to stand up and speak truth.
Yeah.
They have an opportunity to raise strong kids that know and understand what it is to love someone with a difference of belief or opinion.
Oh, yeah.
There's an opportunity for us to take our country back and to do it from a better position. We don't have to go back to the Civil War and try and redo that rodeo, but we can do it differently, but we do have to take a stand. Yeah. And I think we're getting to that. I think we're going to see civil war in our country.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I know there's a lot of hurt in this country, a lot of hurt, and there's a lot of pain. And to reference our great friend Nick Howland, just freaking love everybody. Can we just do that?
Why can't we?
It's not that difficult.
I was thinking about that one conversation I was thinking about yesterday, and I don't remember where it came up. I was watching something. It might have been something on social media, but it was talking about, it was parents. They're all pissed off that the school, somebody said something. One of the kids wore a shirt. It created drama. And instead of making it a learning opportunity, instead of that being the case, everybody went into full riot gear, riot behavior. And I was sitting there and thinking, you know what? It's so insane to me. I don't think in terms of color. I don't think in terms of religion as a general rule, unless it really infringes on my space. Why can't we look and love people for their soul? Souls don't know color. They don't know race. Mm-hmm. They don't know religion. They don't know wealth. If we could go and start teaching our kids to love and honor someone's soul, we could change the world.
Yeah.
And in that space, we bleed the same color blood.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you're black or I'm white. Our blood is still the same color.
I agree, yeah.
And so I think that in the ugliness of what we're currently living in, we have to really be intentional with how we go and show up in our day so we don't get taken out by it. Mm-hmm. That's why my crazy shit matters to me. But we have an opportunity. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about and I'm so passionate about my boys.
Yeah.
Because I know that they're going to be here and we have very few leaders left to lead this world. Mm-hmm. We need them to stand up.
Yeah.
And we need to empower them to do that. And we need to love them to do it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the beauty it's what I love about being in this space. It's why I love you guys.
Yeah.
I see men that want to be leaders, and I see a country that needs them desperately. Mm-hmm. How is that wrong?
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I absolutely full-heartedly agree with you. And you know, being part of We Are the They and being part of this brotherhood, like some of the conversations that we have, like, you know, nobody agrees with everybody.
No.
I have, you know, Mark McCormick, myself and Nick and Josh Sherwood and Michael Crane, we've all had these conversations and they have a different opinion to me. That's great. I love you for your opinion. You love me for mine. Who gives a shit? Move on.
Right.
Okay, I like blue. You like white. Great. Move on.
Until you make me wrong for liking blue, we haven't got a problem.
Absolutely.
The minute you tell me I cannot love anything but blue, now I have a problem.
Exactly.
And so that's the whole point.
But when you have true love and respect between people,
that's right.
They will never make you wrong for what you believe.
That is correct.
It's like, you know, there are members of We Are the They that are active, very active LDS.
That's right.
I'm not a religious person. I don't tell them they're wrong. I don't tell them not to talk to me about their religion. I don't disapprove of them for their religion.
No.
I don't care what your religion is. I just love you, dude. And I love your wife and I love your family. And I don't care whose God you pray to. Like, that's fine. As long as you love me for not having one.
That's right.
Which they do. And that's just the way the world has to go around. I don't give a shit what your MO is. I'm just going to love you for you.
Again,
and
I'm going to love your soul.
Yeah, I'm going to love your soul. And if I don't like you, I don't like you. That's okay too.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like Marmite. You either love me or you don't like me. It's love me or loathe me.
I'm kind of that way too.
I'm fine either way, you know? Melissa, this has been, quite honestly, the quickest hour in my life.
That's an hour already?
I know. Isn't that crazy? I told you we could literally be here
We could do this for days.
Absolute days. Melissa, I absolutely love and adore you.
Oh, likewise, honey.
I have told several times on my podcast the different story how you quite honestly changed my life. You really did. In St. George, I don't know whether you remember this, that whole thing. Yeah. You changed my life. You literally allowed me to look at my life in a way that I've never seen before, and it completely changed my narrative. So, and I've shared, I'm about to release a podcast next week. We'll actually talks about that story where I went from being a mistake to a miracle, and you showed me that. And so, I love you dearly. My wife loves you and adores you. We would adopt you if we could, and have
I'm
you,
looking for new family. You never know.
And have move you to Tucson, but you can't handle the heat. But that's okay. We got AC. But I love you and I adore you. I think you are one of the most powerful women that I've met. You've gone through adversity. I've heard your story several times. You've gone through adversity and came out kicking its ass. And I think the world needs more women like you too. More women that support men, encourage men to grow, encourage men to have a place in this world, encourage men to be masculine and also feminine.
That's right.
And you do it from a place of love and without judgment. And I think the world needs more women to help support men like us.
I agree.
And to allow us to find a place and a voice. And I think the world needs more women like you to be friends with other women.
Well, thank you.
Because when women have friends like you, it makes them better. And I've seen changes in Andrea through We Are the They, which is part of the work that you've done through that group. So you are changing the world, you are changing lives, you've changed mine, and you've changed hundreds of others that we both know. And I just really honor you and thank you for coming on today.
I love you.
Thanks, you too. Honey. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Bear Den podcast. Please click subscribe and get the updates for our new episodes. And if you feel the need to reach out, you can reach me on Instagram @TheBritBear.